Hi, I'm Lori K. Coleman. Welcome to the Empowering Transformation Series, How to Reduce Stress and Release Trauma, Experience a Peaceful Mind, and Have the Power to Move Forward. I'm so thankful you are here. I'm doing this series to help people learn tools to make it through the challenging times that we are in. And I am excited to bring you today Dr. Evan Van Drill. Dr. Evan is a naturopath physician specializing in treatment of trauma, mood disorders, and chronic pain. He graduated from Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine in 2014 with a doctorate of naturopathic medicine and has since pursued postgraduate studies in neuro-emotional technique, mesophysiology, psychoneuroimmunology, I do know how to say that word, and regenerative medicine, including certification from the Internal College of Applied Kinesiology and multiple certifications in injection techniques and the application of ozone. He feels blessed to have found a profession that he enjoys and a passion for. Now he shares what he has learned with others to build them up so they can live without symptoms and enjoy the activities that they love. Dr. Evan's mission is to help people to be stronger so they can handle more. By helping people to reduce pain, improve their mood, and rewire their brains after trauma, Dr. Evan has noticed that people can be more themselves and show up differently in life. He sees the nervous system as innately intelligent, adaptable, and having a high degree of plasticity. Being able to leverage his knowledge of this fact structurally, biochemically, and mentally emotionally means that what people experience does not always have to be what they experience. Dr. Evan, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you taking time for us.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together, Larry K.
Oh, yes, I'm happy to serve in this way. I felt like I ought to. Let's begin by you explaining how trauma creates interference in the nervous system.
Sure, yeah. So I guess the way that I see it is that when there's I guess our brains encode memory by the amount of emotion, or due to the amount of emotion that's going on in the circumstance that we find ourselves in. So when you ask somebody what they had for breakfast, like last week on Tuesday, they might not know unless it's the same thing every Tuesday. But if you ask people where they were when something like 9/11 happened, a lot of people can snap back right into that moment and remember exactly where they were, who they were with. And so this is kind of how memory works. Like the more significant emotionally a situation is, the more likely we are to remember it. And this happens on the positive side, but also on the negative side. So this is how trauma gets wired. It's due to emotion. And so I guess when a negative event happens, it can create a neuro-emotional complex, I guess is one way to call it, a complex. But basically what that is that there's some kind of trigger that evokes that same physiological, emotional state.
And you believe that there is a definitely physiological aspect happening because of that emotional state.
Exactly, yeah. And it's hard to say whether it's the physical state that evokes the emotion, the physiological state, or if it's the emotion that evokes the physiological response, or if they're so intertwined and together, like they happen so seamlessly together that it's hard to know which one came first. But either way, we know that they both happen when people are triggered. So we can use that fact, the fact that emotional responses do come along with the physical, physiological response to clear out those trigger / response relationships, so that people don't have to respond with that same emotion every time they run into that trigger.
Nice, yeah. So regardless of which one comes first, you can be dealing with the emotional aspect and then have the physiological side change for you.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So I know with you love so many different things and you specialize in so many different things. And I know you love the gut-brain connection, and I have another doctor that will be talking about that. And you love to talk about mitochondrial function and the powerhouse of our cells and having the energy there. But what I would like us to focus on is how let's have you talk about first, oh, what was it? You were talking about interference fields. Talk to us about that. We can learn that specific thing, and then I want us to dive more into the emotional aspect, because that is something unique about you as a naturopathic doctor, that you really dive into that. And so after we talk about the interference fields, we'll dive into this other topic.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So I guess the basic idea behind interference is that I guess our brain has a certain amount of bandwidth, so to speak. So say, like, if we're thinking about the amount of download and upload speed, like that, it's kind of a simplistic way of looking at it, but the more bandwidth we have, the more information we can process, and the more we can respond to our environment. So, like, thinking about it in like an internet terminology kind of way. So interference basically reduces our bandwidth, so that we have less ability to respond to our environment, to sense our environment, ultimately respond to it, and then and I guess sense our environment, integrate that, and then produce a response that's good for ourselves and the people around us. So so interference basically is anything that throws smoke into the nervous system, that is a mismatch between the brain's map of the body and the body, what's actually going on in the body. And so I guess interference can take multiple forms. One really common form of interference is a scar. And it doesn't matter whether it happened during trauma or some kind of like a traumatic event or a surgery like it was planned. Basically, when you cut through the tissue, especially the fascial tissue, it seems like that fascia is brings in more sensory input than other types of tissue, even muscle, bone, skin. So that it seems neurologically more important when fascia is disrupted. So kind of like deeper scars, I guess, definitely cut through the fascia if they're going all the way through the layers into the body cavity, for example. So when you
Some of our audience might not know what fascia is. I look at it as that sticky stuff between the skin of a chicken and the meat of the chicken. It's this, it's everywhere. It's very much connected. I don't know if they need to know what fascia means or not, but.
No, that's a good point, exactly, yeah. And that is what the fascia is. The way that I see it is that it's kind of like the saran wrap around a piece of meat. It's kind of like that, like, it's not made out of plastic, it's made out of connective tissue, kind of like it's made out of collagen, kind of like ligaments and tendons are. But it's very much thinner, but it's very highly innervated. And so basically, I guess the brain gets a message about a muscle, for example, about the length of that muscle and hence your body position. So like your brain knows whether your arm's here or here, partially based on how much stretch there is in the fascia and how much slack there is in the fascia, vice versa, and how tense a muscle is. And so if there's a scar in that fascia, or scar that's cut through that fascia, then the brain doesn't exactly know what the length of that fascia is versus the muscle. And so those two pieces of information that are coming from the muscle and from the fascia don't match up. And then it takes up processing power, I guess, to reconcile that difference. Honestly, I think it's something like 70% of what our brains have to process is proprioceptive input from our body. So we think about our senses being like our ability to see, smell, taste, touch. But there's also this sense of like where we are in space and how we relate to the objects around us. And that is where the body spends most of its processing power.
That's so interesting, Dr. Evan, because in the time that we're in, there's a lot of outside stress going on. And so if there's something that we can do inside of ourselves to have our brains not be so overwhelmed by the 70% of what's going on. Sorry, I thought I turned my phone off. And that is so important. It's something that they can actually do to make it be different.
Yeah, exactly. And so say you have one scar on your bicep, and you have one they took out your gallbladder, and then you have another one where you tore a tendon in your ankle. Like, it's not like any of these individual issues are enough to topple your nervous system and cause you to break down. But in my experience, all of these things add up. They all end up taking up space and your ability to process that input that's coming in. And then we don't have to talk about all these things, but then plus the stress from your diet, GI inflammation, you're not sleeping well, you don't, you're at odds with somebody at work. All this stuff on top of this interference is what causes people to start decompensating. So I think you're right. If we can reduce the internal interference, or at least the interference that's coming from our own bodies, and take responsibility for that, then I think we have more ability to handle what's going on around us.
Yeah, I love how you look at it as a bandwidth thing. It's like you can only deal with so much.
Right.
Do you
And
think that?
yeah.
I'll say
Sorry.
that one more time.
I think we all got to that point where we're just like, there's if one more thing got piled on top of me, I wouldn't be able to handle it.
Yeah.
So if we have less internal stress, we have more. I don't know. Not to say that you should get to that point where you're toppling over all the time, but part of it's internal, and people don't necessarily realize it, I guess.
Yeah. Do you think our bandwidth can increase through having times of stillness or meditation, or just being, having a break from computers or whatever? Does that increase our bandwidth?
Yes, that's a good question. I've never. I think there are things that we do that reduce our bandwidth, or certain situation states that reduce our bandwidth, and there are certain things that we can do to improve it. I guess the other way I kind of think of it is kind of like a bucket, and like once it gets to a certain point, it starts overflowing. So we can either we can do things to scoop water out of the bucket. We can just not pour things into the bucket. We can. So there's different ways to do it. I think breathing. Now that you're saying this, breathing is one way we can definitely improve our bandwidth, because if we're oxygenating our cells, they'll be able to produce more energy, and that's one way we can definitely do it.
I was looking at your free gift, which I'm so excited that you're offering to the audience, and you talk about different ways to nourish your body, which is just all free, and it's just, but the breathing is in there, and the importance of just being able to be well hydrated, and the reason behind that and how that helps. But before I get too down crazy paths, I would like you to talk about how they can take care of these scar tissues, because it's super, super simple, and it's just an over-the-counter product.
Yeah, one of the quickest, or one of the best ways that I've seen to deal with scar tissue is using castor oil. And so a lot of people know castor oil as as a laxative. So that's one way to use it for sure. You can take an ounce of castor oil, and it'll get your bowels moving for sure. But the other way you can use castor oil is using it topically, either in a pack, in the form of a pack, or just massaging it into a scar. So usually what I have people do if they have a particularly gnarly scar is to have them massage the castor oil into it, and kind of spread the tissue, I know it sounds like kind of aggressive, but kind of disrupt it, rip it up almost, to kind of, because if you run your hand over a scar and if you can feel it in any way, then it's causing interference as far as I'm concerned. So you should be able to kind of run your hand over it. It shouldn't necessarily feel like there's a lump underneath it, or if there's like a certain way that you pull it that creates tension or pain, or creates like a zinging electrical feeling. If any of that's going on, then that's a scar that's creating interference. So what you can do is kind of use your fingers to kind of pull those collagen fibers that are all attached together in like a non-linear and dysfunctional way. You can pull those apart. You can kind of physically manipulate the scar to reduce the size of it. And the cool thing about castor oil is that it improves blood flow to the area, improves lymphatic drainage. So it helps to soften the scar tissue over time. So yeah, I see between 1 and 3 months of using castor oil 3 or 4 times a week on a scar really significantly reduces the size, the feeling of it, and also the physical appearance of it too. I mean, it's, for some people that's the more significant part. For me, I'm always looking at the nervous system, so I'm more interested in how it's affecting the body's ability to do what it needs to do versus the appearance. But the castor oil also does reduce the appearance of the physical scar.
So now I understand what you mean by form a pack. Can you explain what that would look like?
Yeah, so I don't personally do this myself, so I don't feel like I can recommend it to people, because let
me hear you try.
Yeah, so so what you do is you take a piece of flannel cloth, or cotton or whatever you have. They sell castor oil kits at health food stores and things like that too, online on Amazon. But you can, not that I want to plug Amazon right now, but basically you just soak this flannel cloth in castor oil, and I mean soak it so that it's not so that it's dripping, but it's so that it's holding the oil. It's not just dabbed on there, and then you place it over over the scar. I mean, commonly people use castor oil packs over the liver or over the uterus for menstrual cramps and menstrual complaints. But one of the more common places is over the liver. I guess that's the liver has a lot of jobs. It metabolizes hormones, clears out histamine. It's responsible for conjugating or detoxifying hormones. So I guess the liver is one place you can use a castor oil pack, but you can use a pack anywhere. So basically, you put the pack over that piece of skin, liver, where the scar is, over the abdomen, and then wrap it with Saran wrap, and then so that kind of keeps the oil contained. And then you can put a heating pack over that Saran wrap, and then the heat allows the castor oil to diffuse deeper into the tissues. So if you want to go deep, I guess with castor oil, then the pack, it definitely does work better. I just don't have the patience or the.
Yeah, I've done that for my children. I've done it when they were having asthma attacks, and it would help them be able to breathe more.
Yeah.
And so you're putting the pack. I used 100% cotton because I had a lot of old clothes that were of that material, and I just cut it up to the size I wanted it to be. And so I'd put that, I'd soak that, put that on, and then the Saran wrap on top. So I'm not surrounding that completely. I'm just protecting my heating pad from
Right.
my cloth.
No,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, and I didn't mean to surround the castor oil. I meant like surround the body, I guess. Like Saran wrap
Oh, so
the.
you've actually heard me wrap the entire body in the Saran wrap.
Yeah, just so it keeps it in place. You don't have to hold it. I guess if you're laying down, but I
Uh-huh.
mean, putting it over the liver, it'll slide off for sure, or it
True,
could.
true. Yeah.
So yeah, to kind of keep it in place, that's a good point. Yeah, you do want the cloth with the castor oil on it in contact with the skin because that oil is diffusing through, as far as we know, and having its effects that way. So that's awesome that you found that helped with breathing. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. The doctor of, anyway, the Southwest Naturopath Medical Center, he used to be my doctor. And that was what he suggested to me.
Right.
So beautiful. Well, I hope that really opens our audience eyes to what they can do to help their body get less physical stress, whether, I mean, even on a regular basis, taking care of their liver so that they can handle things more, or the scars. There's different things that you can do. And it's very, very economical